Rockin' House.
Today's special guest we are so fortunate to have today, Rock Dude, is Mark Duda of the New York music scene of the who's who. The incredible roster Mark Duda is going to present today in this show is going to blow your mind. Rock
I
Dude.
was dumbfounded when I found out who the who's who plays on all his the skit here. We got Mark Duda, Month of Sundays, which is his current solo album, and his main band is The Handful.
Yep.
And on The Handful, he had special guests like world-renowned Pat Travers, Sherry Curry from the Runaways, who sang on his Handful album as a guest,
Yep.
and Bobby Rondinelli. Rainbow, like in the '81 era, with Joe Lynn Turner was in the band. Boy, is that amazing in itself.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow. And in 2021, when he comes out with another Handful,
Fifth studio album.
fifth studio album, The Handful, it's going to be Cass and Sultan, a.k.a. Todd Rundgren, and Utopia, one of the baddest bass players, too. So it's an amazing thing.
Incredible.
And when you check out his amazing stuff, we got Wooden Indian, which is one of his The Handful. We got Sons of Downtown, which is a Handful album. And we got Month of Sundays, which is his current solo album.
Yep.
So I can't say enough about Mark Duda for coming on the show. And he's going to talk about what's going on and, the COVID thing, and all about the New York circles and all his amazing musicians. So let's go, Mark.
Absolutely. And I want to say one other thing that we didn't mention, but I'll mention it now because he's got such a vast roster of musicians
I know where you're
he
going
works
with this, Mark.
And you know what I'm talking about. And that's one of the biggest punk rock bands in the New York City scene back in the day, probably in '78. I think we're looking in that range.
Yeah, the old CBGB Club.
Absolutely.
And
you tell me who it is,
well,
man.
here it is. He even works with the famous world-renowned Cheetah Chrome. So,
Yeah.
wow. So,
Yeah, man.
this is one musician everybody needs to know. He's a fantastic singer-songwriter, and I can't say enough about Mark Duda. So, go ahead, Mark.
And then, of course, we got the other boy that's in there. This guy works with so many musicians. It's unbelievable. You know, we're going to bring Mark Duda on right now, and he's going to tell you all about it. So let's bring on Mark Duda and welcome him to the Rockin' House. Welcome, Mark. All right. This is Marky Z. I'm here with Rock Dude, another awesome episode of The Rockin' House. Today's special guest from New York City, another New York City native, a guy who's played with, performed with, and produced records with all these artists that you're very well familiar with. I'm sure once you hear some of the roster of musicians, absolutely he's been blessed to work with. Welcome, Mark Duda, to The Rockin' House. We're so happy to have you today, brother.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, brother.
Awesome, man. And what I'd like to do with Mark is start with, how things started for you as a musician. Like, how did you become a musician? Like all of us start, like what made you want to be, what influenced you to be that person?
Yeah, I mean, listen, when I was growing up, became of age in the 80s and 90s, and, there was so much great music out there, especially hard rock, which is, for the main part, what I've pursued.
Absolutely.
I gave drums a shot, didn't work out for me. But, beginning
Right.
I would say about freshman year in high school, a lot of bands started to form. And I had a good look for the 80s. I thought I could sing, but had never sang in front of people before. But I had somebody say, hey, would you give it a shot and sing for our band? And I said, absolutely. So
awesome.
It started there. Right away, I was in two different bands, a punk band and sort of a glam metal band, kind of a sweet meets Motley Crue thing, which was very appropriate for the 80s.
Very nice.
And
Right.
and it's gone from there. I mean, I picked up the mic and I haven't put it down. So
Very awesome, man. So that's how things started for you. Now let's talk about some of the, the vast roster just goes on and on of who you've worked with. Is unbelievable. Right. I mean, if you want to start with your main band, which I believe is The Handful, will be a good one to start with because there's some really awesome people that are well-known musicians that you had opportunity to work with and record with. Absolutely.
Yeah. So band was founded by Jay Michelle and I. Jay's the bass player and the keyboard player for the band.
Okay.
We made we've made 4 albums and we're about to release our 5th.
Nice.
We started to, sometimes it takes a couple of records to get traction, right? So
Yeah, sure.
we built our following and our notoriety over the course of the first few records. And then when it was time to go in and record 2015's Sons of Downtown,
Okay.
we were able to bring some super high caliber musicians into our orbit. Just our songwriting had matured to the point where the songs were attracting better talent.
Right.
And again, we did have some notoriety
Sure.
and some budget to work with. So, funny story about it. I would say the first sort of, name guy that we worked with was Bobby Rondinelli, who we're
Nice.
still working with. And that just kind of came about by, we were opening for a lot of national touring acts. We had a gig with Joe Lynn Turner.
Very awesome.
We just asked Joe kind of offhand, hey man, a Bobby Rondinelli type of drummer that's around, and his answer was something like, only Bobby plays like Bobby, but why don't you give him a call,
Right.
And it kind of didn't occur to me at that time that, instead of looking for a Bobby Rondinelli type drummer,
Right.
why not just reach out to Bobby and see what he thought?
There you go. Never know.
We reached out to Bobby. His response was that, he thought the songs were great. And I think that's kind of what attracted him to the project.
Nice.
And we went from there. So we had Bobby on board. Another, around the same time period, we were opening shows for Pat Travers. I asked him to play on the record.
Nice.
He agreed.
Wow.
I had known Jimmy Bones for a while, just playing in the same New York clubs, whether it's Continental or CB's or Lions Den or Don Hills, these places we all used to play.
Nice.
I asked him to join us on the record, and he of course is a guitar player's guitarist, meaning he's incredibly versatile, and he's played on everything played with everybody from Blondie and Kix and Joan Jett to acts like Enrique Iglesias and the Jonas Brothers. He's,
Unbelievable.
Extremely versatile.
Oh yeah.
And the handful's material is pretty diverse. We've always described it as a handful of everything we ever heard and liked.
That's how the name came. All right.
We sound like us, but the songs can be influenced by Southern rock, punk rock, classic rock, prog rock, British metal. So we have diverse influences along the rock spectrum. So he was a perfect fit from that standpoint.
Nice.
I asked Cheetah Chrome, my buddy from the Dead Boys, to play on the record, and he played on a bunch of tracks.
Nice.
And of course, the Dead Boys, another sort of iconic New York band. They're actually from Cleveland, but they came to prominence in the days of CBGBs.
Wow. Yeah. Oh yeah.
78. So when they went to New York is when things took off for them.
Very awesome.
I was looking we had a duet on this record, and I'm still talking about 2015 Sons of Downtown.
Right.
And I was kind of just spitballing with Cheetah one day, having a little bit of a skull session,
Yeah.
and we should approach some of the material. And Cheetah also mixed that record, by the way.
Nice.
I had a duet on the record, and I was looking for somebody to sing it with.
Right.
And he suggested Cherie Curry from the Runaways.
Wow.
And he reached out to her on our behalf because I did not know her at that time. And she loved the song and she agreed. And so
Very awesome.
We kind of went from being this, pretty well established East Coast band with a good cult following overseas and elsewhere to, another level of notoriety just by people were interested. Well, how come Bobby's playing with these guys, and what does Pat see in these guys? What's the connection with Cheetah? And it kind of, it got people to give us a listen who maybe didn't take the time to listen to us before.
Understand that.
And from there, around the same time that album came out, I started to record a solo record. It was just an EP. What I wanted to do I'm a pretty diverse songwriter, and so I write
Okay.
everything from metal to R&B to country. And so I had a
Awesome.
lot of songs that weren't suited to my voice as an instrument or to my band in terms of the way, we play and
Sure.
sound.
Oh, yeah.
So I wanted to kind of stick my toe in the tub to do something a little different. I
Yep.
never thought it made much sense to do a solo album that sounded like your band.
Right.
Usually
Okay.
when people do that, they're getting ready to leave the band. That wasn't the case with me. I wanted to do something different. So I tapped Jimmy Bones to produce because aside from being the guitar player that he is a producer. He's pretty well known for that.
Wow.
And it was about, and in having that pre-production skull session of what do you want these tracks to sound like? What's your vision for the sound? And me kind of saying like, that Billy Idol White Wedding through Rebel Yell type of era stuff.
Okay.
That old Joan Jett sound. That sort of Lower East Side swagger, greasy kind of rock sound, that attitude rock.
Nice. Yeah.
Anything from New York Dolls to Johnny Thunders to Dead Boys to Ramones, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And, his position on it was, listen, if you want to sound like those records, get the guys that played on those records. And so he, I was, of course, emboldened by having so many people agree to appear with a handful that we just reached out to these folks. Now, Jimmy had a stint with Joan Jett. So he knows Tommy Price. They're very close.
Nice.
He brought in Tommy on drums. Tommy suggested Kenny Aronson on bass. And they had both played with Billy Idol. They had both played with Joan.
That's awesome. Wow.
And so he came aboard.
Wow.
I actually had him play all drums except for one track, and that one track he didn't play. Bobby Rondinelli played.
Nice.
And I had Cheetah guest on that record as well. And instead of it just being sort of this one-off thing to get those songs out of my system, it had sold really well for me, better than my records had in a while. So
Wow.
I decided to make another one. And for that one, the band is the same with the exception of Kenny.
Okay.
Kenny was on, Kenny's a world-class bass player. And
Right.
he was blessed to have the opportunity to join the Yardbirds. He was on a classic rock cruise at the
Amazing.
time. So Tommy suggested we reach out to Chasm Sultan. Now, a lot of people know Chasm from his work with Utopia and Todd Rundgren.
Wow.
His work with Meatloaf. He plays on Bat Out of Hell. He was the musical director for Meatloaf for a decade. And he's also played with Joan Jett, which almost seems to be like a rite of passage for
Right.
New York musicians.
Unbelievable.
And so Kaz came aboard for the second album, and those sessions were nearly completed when COVID hit, so they'll be completed soon.
Awesome.
Yeah, and for the Handful record that we're finishing up now, this 21-track double album.
Right.
Jay, my co-founder, he lives a little bit more in that Prague jam rock world, and so he had reached out to Jake Sininger from Humphreys McGee, who's on the record, and he also reached out to Steve Hackett from Genesis, and those guys did something with us.
Wow.
So,
Amazing.
really have been fortunate and blessed to have these people lend their talents to my projects. It's really I couldn't have dreamt it up better.
Mark, that's amazing roster of people. And I'll tell you what, we're going to cut right here and come back in just a minute with Mark Duda. Unbelievable.
And baby, when I say I'm never gonna leave you, I've been throwing it all away. I just turn my back and leave you for a month someday. Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm coming around again. You can't resist my foolish grin. And baby, I know.
All right, we're back with Mark Duda again. Welcome back to the Rockin' House, Mark Duda. Wow. What a roster of musicians you had opportunity to work with, and still working with some. And one that I want to talk about is Bobby Rondinelli. I'm very familiar with that name as well as some of the ones you've already mentioned. And I understand he's played in one of the pivotal Black Sabbath albums with Tony Martin. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's on Cross Purposes.
Wow. Very awesome. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, I of course knew that when I reached out to Bobby. I mean, a lot of people kind of discount that Tony Martin era. A lot of people that don't, haven't really listened closely,
Right.
just say, well, he's the guy that kind of sounded like Dio. Well, kind of. I mean, to me, he sounds like Ray Gillen meets Dio, and
Right.
he's kind of his own thing.
Right.
But Tony is great, and I mean, I think that my introduction to that era was Headless Cross, which Cozy Powell plays on.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's a connection there because
Sure.
Cozy, Cozy passed away, and Bobby took over the drum kit. He took over the stool for Black Sabbath on the Cross Purposes record.
Right.
And Cozy also had a history with Rainbow.
Yeah.
And, but my first introduction to Bobby on the drums were those great Rainbow records that he made during the Joe Lynn era.
Oh,
when
yeah.
they kind of went from this, people that listen to Rainbow were kind of like Deep Purple fans, and people that wanted to hear Richie play, and they kind
Right.
of, they blew up into, this radio friendly thing
Yeah.
with Richie didn't have to betray his playing style, but they became a commercial success with a much wider audience when they got Bobby and Joe Lynn in the band.
Man.
And so, when I would think about it, and when I would talk to Jay Michelle, the co-founder of The Handful, about drummers we like, it's the versatility of Bobby.
Right.
As a Rainbow fan and as a Sabbath fan,
Yep.
there's a lot there to chew on. I mean, if you're going to hang with those bands, you have to be a very versatile player. So,
Oh, yeah.
you have to be technically very precise, but you also have to be able to bang. Bobby's cymbal work is second to none. I can think of maybe Ian Pace being on that level in my opinion in terms of cymbal work. And he was the guy we wanted. So, again, it started out, can we find somebody like that to being blessed enough to play with Bobby? And now
Right.
he's appearing on our second record on 21 songs, and he's recorded, almost 36 songs with the band now.
Wow. And Mark,
and,
I want to, just while we're on the subject, you said you got an album coming out, 5th album, correct, with the Handful?
Yeah, the Handful's 5th album.
Let's
album's
talk about that.
Titled Blackjack. It's a 20-plus track double album. So
Nice.
It's another way we go against the grain, right? We're in the age of singles and short records and kind of quick hits.
Yeah.
And we had a lot to put out there. It's been 5 years since the last record.
Okay.
We've been doing some other things. I put out the solo record.
Right.
Jay's been doing some other things, but this is a long time coming. So it's
Very awesome.
Released in 2021.
Okay.
Again, the core four members of the band are Bobby Rondinelli, Jimmy Bones, Jay Michelle, and myself.
Nice.
And it again, Cheetah Chrome joins us again on the record. Cheetah from Dead Boys and Rockin from the Tombs.
Right.
Jay had reached out to some people who are kind of part of his jam rock, prog rock world. Like he reached out to Steve Hackett from Genesis and
Nice.
Jake Sininger from Humphreys McGee. And so it's really it's a super diverse record. All of our records are diverse.
Okay.
Again, the Handful representing a handful of everything we've ever heard in life.
That's
But
great.
this one, we've stretched it even further. I mean, you're going to hear elements of, punk rock. You're going to hear elements of, Pink Floyd, and you'll hear elements of, bands like ELP and,
Nice.
and, of course, the Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Skynyrd stuff, which has always been part of our hodgepodge.
Very cool, man. All right, Mark, we're going to come back in just a minute and talk a little bit more where the future is going with the Handful and how things are happening with how you're dealing with COVID-19 in just 1 minute. Yeah, I'm back with Mark Duda again. And again, Mark, we really appreciate you taking time out and coming to the show and sharing these amazing stories and what you've done in your life and how you've been brave enough to just go after what you want. And it's just like a dream, it happened. Like, I mean, that's an amazing thing. And I got to commend you for that. I'm sure our viewers will do the same. But I want to talk about it as we close our show about, you know, this connection with this band Rated X, which Bobby Rondinelli, I believe you told me, has been like, his mentor would be Carmen Apice, who played the drums with this band. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. Bobby studied with Carmine, and
wow, that's amazing.
You know, I'm a fan first, and so I remember, you know,
Yeah.
the first time I met Bobby to work with him, I showed up with his book about, you know, his encyclopedia of double bass drumming.
Nice.
I had his solo record, Rondinelli, that he did with his brother Teddy, and I had a copy of Cross Purposes, and I had him sign them all before we got started. But yeah, that's an interesting connection. I mean, a lot of these guys know each other. So Bobby obviously worked with Joe Lynn in Rainbow.
Right.
And I think they're two, you know, most commercially successful records.
Nice.
Bobby studied with Carmine. And
Wow.
those are two of the guys that formed that project. And I think, you know, it's tragic that Carl got sick. Because I really think, you know, sky was the limit for that. That
Yeah.
It was really good sounding stuff. I know we were talking about the song "Who I Am," and
Oh, yeah, what a great video and amazing band.
yeah, and it's an anthem for guys like you and I. You know, like some people don't get it. They'll get it. Mark, you still doing music? And what do you mean? I'm still doing music. I'm still breathing. I'm still doing music. You know, this is who I am. This is what I do.
That's right.
This is all I know. You know, So what else would I do?
Right, right.
You know, I know I'm not here on the earth to sell widgets and make somebody else $1 million. You know,
That's great.
You know, my thing has always been writing songs, and I'm blessed enough to be able to sing and play on my own stuff, and to collaborate with other songwriters and players, for sure.
Absolutely amazing, man. Well, you know what, Mark? I want to say thank you so much for coming to the Rockin' House today.
Thank you.
Again, it was an amazing experience to talk to you. I'm sure there's even a lot more stories that we haven't even got close to covering. But I'll tell you what, we gave them a good dose of what you're about and where things are going.
Yeah.
And no doubt about that. And Mark, again, me and Rock Dude, we'd love to thank you again for coming to the show. I'm Mark Z with Rock Dude, and we are out.